Right, we need to speak about Carlos Sainz because this man is just confusing the heck out of me with how on earth we got to this position that he's in now, 2025 wise. This is of course in regards to his seat, or well, lack thereof. At the moment, apparently, of course, Ferrari did apparently offer him a contract extension for it was like a 1-year extension, I think is what I heard. They'd offered him like in December or something like that, but then he turned it down. I also remember there was Audi were kind of they were coming up into things as well in the back half of last season. It was rumored that the Sainz had been speaking to Audi, then they said, no, we've not been speaking to Audi, but then all of a sudden, it was around about Monza, they were saying, oh no, actually, we did have a conversation with Audi. There's been talks after they'd said, no, we haven't been speaking to Audi. There's nothing happening there. Kind of, they were using Audi to maybe try to get a better deal out of Ferrari, but of course then they decided to look elsewhere and they signed Lewis, which is what started all of this of Sainz needing to find a new seat for next season. And of course at that point, obvious option, Audi / Sauber. We can they want Carlos. We can they want Sainz. They'd already been linked with them at this point, but he wasn't signing anything with them. He was dragging it out. They signed Hulkenberg. Sainz still wasn't signing. Then the rumor came out that at some point, in the last couple of months, the reason why Sainz hadn't signed anything yet was because he was heading out try and go for a seat at Red Bull or Mercedes, a seat at the top team. But of course, that's not happening now. Perez has been renewed at Red Bull for another 2 years. And then after Perez's renewal, just like the other day, then Sainz said that he can't book the renewal for months. So those previous rumors that he was apparently heading out for a Red Bull seat were complete BS. And I'm gonna be honest, this right here is literally what sparked this entire video. It's okay, so well that was bullshit then. So, okay, this man is confusing me, let's do a video. That was basically the thought process. And as Lavia says here, it probably means he had no chance at Mercedes either. And yeah, I do agree. I don't think Mercedes was realistically ever going to happen for Sainz. Especially as soon as Toto got the idea in his head of just getting Kimi Antonelli straight into the car, or, the idea that Max Verstappen could be tempted away. As soon as Toto got them ideas in his head, Mercedes was never realistically gonna happen. They did offer him a deal. They offered him a 1+1, but then he turned it down. Reportedly. That's what I saw. I saw that he'd been offered something by Mercedes, but he turned it down, and now, well, that door's firmly closed for him. And on Checo re-signing, just one more thought on that. I did a video, on Red. I mentioned about this in a video the other day, but just one more thought I've had. Look, whether you think it was the right choice or not on Red Bull to re-sign Checo, in my opinion, one of Red Bull's goals at the moment, to me, is probably going to be keeping Max from being tempted away before the end of his contract. And keeping Checo is a good way of doing that because, as I said, they can Checo, they can what he can do, and most crucially, they can that Checo is not going to pose too much of a threat to Max. He's not going to, well, we saw what happened when he tried to challenge Max, so they know that Checo won't try to challenge Max. He can be the number 2. With Carlos, there's no guarantee that Sainz will be the number 2. He'll not want to be. He will want to challenge Max and try and give him a headache and bring the fight to him. Red Bull don't want that, probably, I'd imagine. They want to try and keep Max happy and keep him from being tempted away, which, for 2025, no chance he'll be tempted away. For 26, I do think there's a possibility, but they want to try and keep him from being tempted away. Keeping Checo, good way to do that, hence why they re-signed him, and I think that realistically, Sainz never had a chance at Red Bull, in my opinion. With that being said though, first of all, I did record that bit before Canada qualifying where Checo was once again rubbish, but also, second of all, just in general, does this mean that I think Red Bull won't regret re-signing Perez if this slump continues? Well, I feel like no, they will regret it, because, well, if this slump continues, then Red Bull will not be winning the Constructors' Championship. Things are closing up. It might really affect them next year, but regardless. And by the way, yes, I am gonna have something coming on the new regulations. I'm planning that video for Wednesday. I came a little bit late, but I've decided to just give myself a bit of time to just get my head wrapped around it all and get my thoughts together on it. For the latest rumors with Sainz's contract has been that he's signed a 2-year deal with Williams and it will be announced at the Spanish Grand Prix. Carlos has rubbished those rumors by the sounds of what James Vowles said the other day, during the weekend here, about how, they have 2 options for 2026, but I think 2025 rather. Then I think that those rumors were, were a lot of BS. I don't think Carlos has signed anything yet. But anyway, Sainz said that he's been presented with good options for 2025, as he worded it, and it feels like he's wanted by everybody he's spoken to, which that's fair. I can see why. He is a good driver. He's proved that, and he could be really good for any of the teams that are options for him, He said, after saying he's Kenna Checo's signing for months, that doesn't mean I won't have a good future ahead of me. I've spoken to money teams who want me a lot, and this makes me feel good as a driver and about everything that will come in the future. Now is a matter of seeing what options are available and choosing the best one. He also said that he's in conversation with money teams for 2025, saying, I've never lied that there are a lot of options on the table for me, he knew, but I want to think about calmly. Obviously, he's wanting to tack his time with making the decision, which is fair. But just a couple months back, he was saying it was the time to speed things up and, make a decision sooner rather than later. So, kind of doubling back on himself a period of it there. What he's just said now to what he said a couple months ago. And it's fair that he wants to take his time with the decision, but he can't attack too long. Or else the doors that are open for him, and he does have a couple options, those doors will close. But what are the options that Sainz has for 2025? Well, Alpine and Haas, I don't see as options. Haas apparently are speaking with Ocon, and as for Alpine, not good. So then that just leaves Williams and Sauber/Audi. Now, Williams is, I think, the safe bet for 2026, looking towards that. And I'm thinking like PU-wise, the engine-wise, the word is that Mercedes seem to have something good going for 2026, and Williams used the Mercedes power unit. My kind of play is anywhere that has a Mercedes or a Ferrari power unit is probably a safe bet for 2026. So, Williams, Mercedes power unit could be good for Carlos for looking ahead to there. And James Vowles has made absolutely no secret of the fact that he wants Sainz. He said that there is 2 drivers they're considering. The shortlist is 2 drivers. I'm assuming that that's Sainz and Bottas. Poor Logan Sargent not getting a look in, really. Unfortunate for him, but Sainz and Bottas, it seems like. Sainz also has Audi as an option. Sauber/Audi. They're a little bit more of a risk for 2026, but they also want Sainz. We've kept that for months. God's sake, how many times have they extended the bloody deadline for him, I'm pretty sure I heard that the deadline was they wanted a decision into him by Monaco, and that was 2 weeks ago now. And that deadline has clearly been extended again because the door is still open? I don't know. They are constantly extending that deadline, which shows that they want, the Sainz family already has ties with Audi through Sainz Sr. in rallying. The current CEO of the Sauber Group is Carlos's former team principal from McLaren, Andrea Seidel. Audi wants Sainz, and that's been no secret. But while it's a risk, he would be the team. He could get to be the team leader there. But with all that said, how much longer will Audi/Sauber wait with Sainz's 1 for 10, 1 for 2 kind of why? How much longer will they wait until they just go, nah, sod this, let's go elsewhere, let's look out for another driver, But I think that Sainz goes for Williams. That's where I think he goes. As I said, Williams, safe bet. I think him and Albon could be a pretty good pair. It could be good for Williams, because they would have a couple of good drivers, But then it is just a bit confused as to how the heck we wound up in this position, how the hell he's ended up at this point anyway, You could put it down to the fact that, he wanted what the top teams couldn't give him. He wanted to be in a top team, but what he wanted out of a contract, the top teams couldn't give him. So this is how he's ended up in this position. So I think he said last year that he wanted his contract for 2025 to be sorted before the start of 2024. And he could have, if he'd taken the 1 year that Ferrari had offered him, that he could have had his contract probably sorted by now if he'd taken the 1+1 that Mercedes reportedly offered him, but he didn't. But now he's gotten himself in a position of we're approaching the summer of 2024 and Sainz doesn't have a seat for this year yet. And if he does get a seat, it wouldn't be at the top team he would have been hoping to get a seat with, which again, you kind of blame him for wanting to get a seat in a top team. He's a good driver, and I'm not saying that, Williams wouldn't be a good team to be in. It would be. As I said, I think him and Albon could be a good teammate lineup. Williams could be a really good place to find yourself in. There's Adrian Newey is floating around. No one quite knows what he's going to do. Could he go back to Williams? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Quite frankly, he could just retire at this point and just go sail around the world on his yacht or whatever. But Williams still aren't McLaren a top team at the moment anyway. But they're a good option for him for 20. Of the options he has, they're still, it's the best option he has at the moment, it seems. But here's a bit of food for thought. Ferrari has been good for him. You know, going to Ferrari wasn't the mistake that a lot of folk thought it was initially after it got announced in the 2020 season. He's scored podiums, he's scored 3 wins, he's got a few pole positions. But with McLaren's trajectory, yes, it would have been a couple of years of pain, but would he have been just as good staying at McLaren? Like I said, yes, it would have been a couple of years of pain, but I think it could have been just as good for him to stay on at McLaren, re-sign with them. Whereas that does bring into the question of, you know, Daniel Ricciardo and Oscar Piastri. What happens with them? What happens with Piastri? Does he still end up in McLaren in 2023? They've been signed. So, you know, what happened with Daniel? Does he stay with Renault? Does he eventually end up back in the Red Bull family? Does he still have his slump that's happened? You know, what happens with Ferrari? Who gets the second Ferrari seat between 21 and 24? Do they keep Seb longer? Do they sign Daniel Ricciardo instead? It does bring those questions, but it is just, I don't know, just something I've been thinking about. Like, would Sainz have been just as good staying at McLaren? Because look, McLaren and Ferrari, they're both up there right now. You know, them two and Red Bull, that's the top 3 teams right now, and there's not much between them. So really, you think about it, he could have been just as good staying where he was at McLaren, but, you know, he got the opportunity at Ferrari. You kind of blame him for taking it, but it's not exactly been working out the way he would have hoped. But I don't know, Carlos Sainz is just confusing me, which is why I made this video. What do you think of Sainz right now? Is he confusing you as well? Where do you see him ending up next year, in the coming years? Do you see him, you know, Williams, Audi, or heck, do you see him going for Alpine? Although I don't see that happening. And as I said, Haas, they're interested in Ocon apparently, so not really an option, I don't think. Let me get your thoughts in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.